Vasta, and welcome back once again to For Art's Sake. Tonight we're taping at Playhouse 22. You know, the theater is a magical world. It can be exciting and lonely all at the same time. You can bomb out, or you can taste the sweet smell of success. And my guests tonight are two East Brunswick playwrights who have tasted the sweet smell of success. And I'd like to introduce them to you right now. Come along with me. This here on my left is my friend Elliot Taubenslag, senior playwright. And over on my right is Mel Boyd, junior playwright for tonight. Say hello, boys.
Hello, boys.
Hello, boys.
Very good. I have a feeling this program is already out of hand. Elliot, I think we're going to start with you. As I said, you're senior playwright, okay? I want to ask you, how did you feel the night Scarlet Lullaby opened up in New York, and you were standing in the back, and the curtain went up, and you knew there were all these critics sitting out in front? What was the thought that went through your mind?
I think I was more frightened than somebody who was really thinking about what was going to happen and so on. For a number of days, I really thought we had a hit on our hands because the audience during previews had been very, very excited about the play, and they kept patting me on the back and saying, "Oh, this is a hit." We were getting tremendous laughs. It was an audience show, and it wasn't a critic show. And William Morris had come in, and they had signed me up, and they had brought people from MGM, and they were talking about a movie deal, and so I was really way up in the air. However, 2 or 3 days also before we opened, a very prominent person in theater had indicated to me that it would be advisable for me not to open the show in its present position, and that he would like to buy in on it and not allow the play to open, though, and to redo the play with new scenery, a star, etc., etc. I didn't go ahead after talking about it with other people. We decided to go ahead and open the play instead. And that night I was excited and frightened, and I just kept thinking, which one is right?
Are you ever sorry you did?
Did open the play?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very. Oh, I'm always sorry I opened it. It was a terrible mistake.
Oh.
Sure.
Well, let me go over to Mel. Mel, now I'm going to ask you the same question. What was the feeling that you had opening night, standing back there, watching?
Well, it was the culmination of maybe 10 months on and off of writing. I'm not an organized person that I could sit down and, I don't know how Elliot works it. But when I got in the mood, I would start to write. And then it's done. I might not hit it for a week. But just to see your characters come to life, I don't know if Elliot, he's probably experienced this maybe more than once. And the fact that the people I knew, as you say, you were in the play and Joe was in the play. And Elliot might have run into this too. I don't know, this being my first play, I had to be careful not to write for you or write for Joe, the characters that I had in mind at the time. I just wrote, and I was fortunate enough that the great people that we have in this group fit in and were the characters that I had written. And that was it, seeing my characters come to life. I say, whether or not it's like this after you do your first play, whether Neil Simon still gets his excitement, I don't know. But I think I would. In fact, I'm working on a sequel to this now, and I can almost see the characters starting to come to life as, or per se, not as Dolly or as Joe. You know? Mm-hmm. So that's where my excitement was.
Well, you know, I don't know whether I mentioned it or not. I know I mentioned Scarlet Lullaby, but I don't know whether I mentioned the name of the show that was The Transformation of Abigail.
No, you didn't, but I just happen to have a copy here, and I think they'll be on sale in the lobby.
That's right.
Yes, this was The Transformation of Abigail.
The Transformation of Abigail.
Abigail.
That's right. What gave you the thoughts in writing that? Now, a long time ago, I know you told me you were writing the life of Henry Hudson as a musical. Right, you're still writing it. Yeah. That was 10 years ago.
No, it was 1967.
Oh, okay. What prompted you to write The Transformation of Abigail?
Well, before I tell you, I'll go back a little and tell you, the people that don't know, that it's about widowhood. In fact, there's an opening line that says, This story is about widowhood, old age widowhood, and how it affects relatives and other strangers, which I thought was a pretty cute line. My father-in-law died. My mother-in-law and father were living in Florida in retirement. He died, which left Alma alone. Alma became my Abigail, and she came up to live with us here in East Brunswick. And just from seeing her, she was sitting around waiting to die, which is what it amounted to. And some people, I guess, get all do that. And the things that happen to old people in this country have bothered me for a long time. I still don't consider myself old now, but I know someday if I'm lucky, as I tell the kids, if you're lucky, you'll get to be old. You know, and as Abigail said in the play, this shouldn't be censored, the old people in this country are taking a screwing. The old people don't realize it. They each have one vote. If they cross party lines, I don't want to start editorializing, but they could get together for the old people. They could get some legislation pushed, you know, like a lot of other lobbying groups do. And just watching her sitting around, what she was doing, her little mannerisms, this and that, I just said to my wife one day, I'm going to write a story, I'm going to write a play. And I just had this feeling. And she said, you know, go ahead. And I just started. I studied. Well, you saw my mother-in-law, you know what it was about, you know. And then my imagination just started picking up, and the way, as I say, we've associated with one another over 20 years, I'm 22 years old. We all think a little bit about the same, you know, and things get crazy at the end.
It's a horrible thought.
And I brought in my mother as one of the other grandmothers, and again, exaggeration, but true life experiences to an extent, you know. And as I have analyzed comedy over the years, up there on a TV screen or on a movie screen or on the stage, up there, everything serious can be funny if you're watching from the outside, almost like looking through a window, you know. And that's how I wrote this, with that in mind.
Well, Elliot, you're not going to get off that easy because I'm going to switch back over to you. Now, you wrote Scarlet Lullaby how many years ago, actually?
1968. That's when we did it. I'll tell you why in a minute.
No.
Well,
but when did you actually start writing Scarlet Lullaby?
I guess I wrote it around 1966 or 1967, but it just seems like ancient history because I've really lost all interest in that play. And,
I know.
I'd been writing long before that, and I've been writing since, and this is just one of the things, and you know.
What got you started writing?
I was in elementary school, and I went to a farm school, and I had 2 classrooms, and there were times when the 2 teachers needed a release from being with all these kids. There were only about 40 kids in the whole school, and so they realized I had an ability to tell stories and act out the papers, and I started improvising funny papers with the kids, and they let me do it, and I used to do the Cats and Jammer Kids and so on, and build up on the stories. And then when I got to the high school in New Brunswick, I already had a reputation of being funny. And so at the variety show, Mr. Harding, who used to run them, would say, would you take care of the comedy? Would you write the skits? And I started writing the skits, and when people laughed, I felt very successful, and I just kept on going. And then I won a playwriting contest while in college, and that did it for me. I said, wow. And that was very serious. It was very, very heavy. And since then, I really find a lot of satisfaction from writing.
How many shows have you written since Scarlet Lullaby?
Oh, since then?
Yeah.
I guess about 4 or 5 full-length plays. Some of them have been done, some of them not. And I would say about 12 or probably more one-act plays. And right now I'm working on a series of things. I've been asked to write a collection of monologues for people auditioning. And I didn't really want to do it. And I thought, well, you know, I'll do 1 or 2. And now I'm very excited about it because I've heard a few of them read, and I'm just enjoying it. It's fantastic. They're like 2 minutes each, or some of them running to 5 minutes, and each one is a little vignette in its own. And I'm having so much fun with it. I'm hoping to finish maybe this summer.
How many in all will that be then?
There'll be 50.
50?
Yeah, 25 for men, 25 for women.
Boy, that's a lot of monologues.
Yeah, it's.
Are you going to put them in a collection and have them published, or?
Yeah, it's for a collection to be published, and you know, I don't know if they'll all be good. I'll probably do one for, you know, based on you. I'm basing them all on,
really?
incidents and people I know.
Oh, really?
That's why it's so much fun.
I'm afraid to ask,
Right.
which one are you doing?
I haven't reached that point yet.
Over 20-some years, there's been a lot of incidents.
When I write it, I'll let you know.
I'm afraid to look at it.
Right.
Now, how do you start to write? I don't mean you pick up your pencil and you have your paper, because I know you with your answers. But when you sit down, do you get an idea first that you say to yourself, gee, I always wanted to write about that? Or how exactly do you begin? There must be a lot of people who wonder.
I have to more or less analyze myself. I don't have a style as such. I called on my experience from 22 years with the Players, and before that, as a teenager in minstrel shows in the Sunday school years ago. And just from knowing it, to me, you have to know theater, you have to know stage before you can write about it. I mean, to me, that's what a play is about, what's taking place on stage.
Excuse me.
You have to know your blocking, which the audience is crosses made on the stage, movements on the stage. So that much I knew I had. And I called on some experience. My father was a movie operator, and I was a movie operator. I grew up in the theater watching the likes of the Marx Brothers, Laurel and Hardy. I felt I knew these people. I grew up, so I think I might have absorbed some of that comedy from that, which I called on. And same way, I worked backstage in Burlesque House one time, and you see an awful lot of stuff there. I guess that might be part of my style. I thought about it, and then I had my ending. I knew how I wanted to play the end. Then I knew how I wanted the first act to end. Maybe from shows that I had been, I really don't know. So if this is a style, I just started writing. I had no experience as far as writing letters or something like that. But I just put stuff down as I went along. I'd write something, and I would start to chuckle. My wife would think I was nuts. But it was a sight thing that I could picture as being funny. You know, a lot of my stuff in this play was sight gag, which I like. I don't like to have people think. I like to hit them with a bang, and that's it. Either you get a laugh, you don't get a laugh.
Well, your writing style is very much sitcom. I mean, having done it.
Yes.
It's very much sitcom, and I often thought you would be a very good writer for a sitcom situation, because you do write in a series of one-liners.
You remind me of that when I think like Jack Benny. Jack Benny was always set up that way. You set something up here, maybe you get a snicker, then you let it go, and then a stranger will come in and refer to the same situation, and he doesn't get, you know, a laugh. It's not funny to him, but to the audience, it's funny.
Right.
That's where your writing comes in.
But your style is a different style altogether, and you write comedy also. It's not so much a one-liner kind of thing, would you say, El?
No, it's probably more of a situation thing
Right.
when I do write comedy, but
Or satire to an extent.
to some extent. But I feel that sometimes I'm more successful now in writing things that are somewhat serious and have a theme to it, maybe even sometimes a message. The play that I feel I did the best job on is a play called Millions of Miles, and it didn't start out with a message, and I don't think anybody sees the message, but to me there was a message about people who were in their golden years, and it was about an old man who was terribly, terribly lonely, who felt he had wasted his life away in a marriage and a relationship that had no warmth to it. And now that he was a widower, he just missed all the excitement that life could have had. And in the play, he meets an aging hooker who is just filled with all the life that he never had, but she doesn't have what he has, and that's security, a place to say, hey, that's my home. And I got the idea before the story, from a newspaper article. An old prostitute had been arrested. She was 70 years old, and the paper said that she still was practicing her
Profession.
Okay. And she said that she didn't know anything else, and she didn't have any place to go, and whoever would take her in, that's who was her customer. And so that I concocted this story from this. But I had to put, as I got the story involved, I put my own incidents into this. it begins in a saloon where this old prostitute fools these young boys, and I was one of the boys in reality, because when I was about 16, or
Are
maybe
we going
15,
to hear secrets now, Elliot? Okay.
yeah,
Good Lord.
a friend and I went to Coney Island, to the big city, and we were very inexperienced, and we never drank, we never even had beer. But in New York City, I guess you could buy, you could go into a saloon if you were 18. So we got into the saloon, and the fellow in Coney Island said, "How old are you kids?" And we said, "Oh, we're 18, you know." And we sat there waiting to see if we could find some adventure. And then all of a sudden, this little old lady came over to us, and she said, "Oh my goodness, did you nice boys see my daughters, my beautiful daughters?" And we said, "No, no." And they said, "Oh, well, she said, you look like nice boys." And oh my goodness, I have such a daughter. She's so wild. All she likes to do is drink and have fun. And she's terrible. But I wish she could meet nice boys like you. And we heard, yes, she's wild, you know. we looked at each other. And she said, "Well, I'd go get him, but it's so late and I couldn't get there. But it's you don't want to really meet him." We said, yeah, we want to meet him. We couldn't wait. And she said, "Well, if I had a few dollars, I could go get him by cab." And we just shoved the money into her hand. She said, "No, I couldn't do that." And, well, anyway, of course, she took the money fast and she came. We waited about 3 hours and she never came back with our money or the daughters. But I put that incident into the play. And it's out of the play now because the play's rewritten.
It is?
Yeah. There's something where she's involved with one young boy.
Oh.
But I love the play because it starred Kay Medford.
Oh, yes.
And not everybody is really as lucky as I. It was the perfect play for the perfect actress. It was a marriage of the actress and the play. And the play had been optioned, as you know. It was supposed to open in New York about a year later, and Kay died of cancer. And then the producer lost interest because he didn't know if he could find anyone to really fit it. She was wonderful for the play. Whatever I wrote that was moderately funny, she made hysterical. Anything that I wrote that was very funny, she just made into something I couldn't believe.
I think all of us were very privileged to have been around her and to have known her.
Terrific person.
Yeah.
She really was. She was marvelous.
I wrote her a poem.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's right.
At your house that night.
That's right. Okay, in all the shows that we've ever done, I think people are always interested in funny stories, or rather things that go wrong. I don't know, for some reason, for all the success, that's why I think outtakes are so popular when they show them on television. Someday I think we'll put some of our outtakes together from this show. But Mel, can you think of anything? I mean, I can think of a couple of things right off the top of my head, but that we can actually talk about.
Yeah.
That
When the bed broke down, and wish you were here.
No, I mean about Abigail.
Oh.
No, going back to Abigail.
Oh. On stage.
Well,
I had one doing a rehearsal, but I got bleeped.
yes, never mind that.
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking of one concerning the set. I mean, there's always inside stories.
See, I didn't know what was going on backstage because I was directing. I was out there. The only thing I knew it about maybe 2 weeks beforehand, I still didn't have one of the Glad girls. So the girl who was going to operate the spotlight decided to become a Glad girl. Because all she had to say was right. She would have a book on that line. No
That's
time at all.
right.
So I ended up operating the spotlight. But they tell me Marlon Brando started that way, so I didn't feel bad, you know.
No, I was thinking
but
of the
other than that-
wallpaper.
Oh,
The
yeah.
stories with the
I
set
forgot.
and the
Oh, my
wallpaper.
God. Unbelievable. Yeah, we had the California Suite set before that. So when I wrote this, I had the set in mind because I had to have my blocking. And I had seen the California Suite set, but it wasn't even up when I started writing. But it just worked out that I could convert that without too much trouble. But that was bamboo effect plasticized on, I don't know, sheetrock or whatever.
Yeah, laminated of some
whatever.
kind.
So we decided we're going to put wallpaper. Or my wife and Dolly were doing the sets right over that. Holy good Jesus, what, it's like 6 times? First they sized it, and they put the wallpaper, but it come down like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
That's right, it would roll.
Then they scored. Joe was in out there. Then we started scoring it, you know. I think we were trying to save that stuff because that was expensive stuff. We could, but finally you're getting close to showtime. You got to get the paper up, right?
We finally did it.
Pasted it up again, right?
Pasted it up and stapled
Put the heat
it.
on. Now, this was in February. They'd have the heat. Come in, and there's the hanging gods of Babylon. Fine. They had to staple it up.
All over.
But you didn't, my wife, thought the staples were like that big, They didn't show up in the audience. That was all you could do. Yeah, I had forgotten about that.
That was so funny because I can remember the last week we were in rehearsal and we would be doing lines and all of a sudden you'd hear,
Yeah, crinkling up back here. Paper coming down on you. Yeah.
and you'd look like this and you'd see the paper starting to roll down. Elliot, I just asked Mel this, as I know you heard, but you have so many stories, I know you must have, of things that have happened, funny things, over the years with the shows that you've written and in rehearsals or anything. What comes to mind?
Well, I guess the one that comes to my mind immediately, we just finished doing a show called Myrtle Mavis Movie Star, and we're still planning to do more with it. But we brought in an actress from New York City to play the role of the movie queen and so on, and she's a very buxom girl, a very shapely girl, and she had a load of costume changes. And there was one particular number in the show that she does as she's sort of Scarlett O'Hara with a very heavy Russian accent, and she rushed off to get into her costume change, and music started playing, and she's supposed to be singing songs, South is Gonna Rise Again, and she rushed on, and she really hadn't been into this dress appropriately. And as I said, she was very buxom, and the thing hadn't been laced, and all of a sudden, she started, you could see the people in the audience looking, and people were nudging, she's coming out of her dress, she's coming out, and I was going, oh my God, shove them back in again, I was getting all nervous. And I was really, I don't want to see this. But at the last minute, she hooked herself up.
And you weren't rated?
No, we were not rated.
You were never rated?
One of the unfortunate things that happened, I'll never forget, another show we did called 1,000 Lives Live Here, which is the story of David Kessler. It was a play I'd been involved in for a number of years. Music was written by Marilyn Cooper. Had a wonderful role for a very dramatic actor. Marilyn wrote a wonderfully stirring song for a favorite actor of mine, Scott Howland. And he's on stage all by himself in a very, very strong spotlight and terribly, terribly dramatic moment. And he just kept going and going and getting very involved in something, and walked right off the stage.
I was there that night.
Yeah, into the orchestra pit and broke a few ribs, and oh God, it was...
I know, I can remember the chaos.
Yeah, not only did I hate to see this happen to any actor, but I liked Scott, and I thought, oh, all the terrible, and he was doing he was so wonderful, but he went on a few days later with the bandages and all.
That's right, he was taped up and he went on, I remember.
But
he's not the only one to ever step off a stage. Like
yes,
the bass drum or something.
That's right, I've been known to fall off a few myself from time to time. Well, in the few minutes that we have remaining, and time seems to have flown right by tonight, when you're having fun, what would be, Mel, I'll go back to you, what would be your dream of a future if you could become a playwright, or maybe I didn't say that clearly enough, but where would you want to go with playwriting?
First of all, I don't want to embarrass Elliot by saying what I'm going to say, so I won't say that I am in awe of him, but as you know, the first thing I ever did locally, one of the local schools, as far as performing, and that's, I say, where I got my experience over the years. But to hear and heard the name Taubenslag, who is this Taubenslag, No, seriously, finally I met him, and he wrote all like Yankee Poo and Out of the Frying Pan, shows that I had never seen, but I had heard about when I first moved into town. And a few years went by, and I'm off on a tangent, but I'll come back to where I started from. And I look in the World Book, and whose name do I see in the World Book but E. Taubenslag? Did you know that?
Right. Yeah.
But they said New Brunswick instead of East Brunswick.
That's right.
And then when I got to know him, then I was involved in the Boy Scouts in town, and I pick up a merit badge book on drama, and who's in that but Miss Dolly and E. Taubenslag again, see? So he has really gotten around. Plus, meeting, that's something we didn't talk about, the people he has met in New York, Jackie Kennedy and the kids, among other, Peter Lawford, this guy, he gets pretty well.
Will you please answer the question I asked you to begin with?
I would like to have my writing be as voluminous, That's the correct word, as Elliot has been. In other words, I've done my first, and it seems like I can't really get going to get my second or third ever gone on. And I've said before, I doubt that I'll live to see it, but I would like to out-Simon Neil Simon. If I can do that, I'll consider myself a success. Now, I saw it one time, I think he had something like 6 plays going at once on Broadway. So if I could have 7 going, you know, 6 of Abigail, Jewish, Chinese, Hungarian, whatever, and then another one, that's my goal.
What about you, Will? What's your goal?
I guess my immediate goal is to thank Mel for the wonderful things he said.
Yeah, that was nice, wasn't it?
But I think my goal is what it's been for a number of years, and that's I don't really want to be a rich and famous playwright. I just want to be a famous playwright. And I would love someday to be successful on another level. You know, I'm very thrilled that some of my work is being done around here and in schools, but I really would like to see it done as it was supposed to have been done just before Kay died. My ultimate goal is based on my good fortune. I'm very, very lucky. I have a son named Michael, who I think is very talented, and he's got a lot of sensitivity. And someday I really would like to see him direct something that I wrote and become very successful with this. And I'd love to see so many of the young people I work with now in the Children's Theater and so on, people who work with me over the past, Kevin Getz here and Darryl Keebler, and you know, so giving them an opportunity to do some of the work. Dolly Vasta. Starring roles in some of the things I've done.
Yes, I've done some of them in your things. But you know, I don't know whether you saw last month's show with Kevin, but he gave you a marvelous plug also. He said that you had been an early mentor of his.
Well,
yes.
Thank you.
Which I thought was very nice.
But that really is my goal, and I haven't given up on 2 or 3 things I'm doing, and we're still negotiating and hoping something will materialize with millions of miles still.
Well, I'll tell you something. In my estimation, I think both of you have been successful because you've been successful friends. And that's where it's all at anyway.
Well, I admire his nose very much.
I gotta make 2 trips to do that.
It's a monumental admiration I've had.
You want to play about it?
Yeah. I want everyone to know out there that I had really strict rules tonight about this taping. Because this man here is absolutely wild. He has the most warped sense of humor.
Yes.
And every time we've taken 2 minutes out for a cut, why, we've sat here and giggled our way through them.
Don't feel bad. The next 10 minutes, Kevin's going to put the tape in the machine.
Well, the guys over there are telling me that I've got to wrap this up, so I want to thank both of you for being my guests tonight. I love both of you. I hope we remain friends through another 3 decades.
That would be wonderful.
And I hope both of you become very famous and you take me along with you, whichever way.
To the old people's home.
To the old people's home. That's good.
You're not there yet?
No, I'm not there. He's not there either. I hope you'll all join me again next month when my guest will be an East Brunswick artist, Barbara L. Harrison, and we'll be down at her exhibit in Princeton. I do want to do a special thanks, though, to a very dear friend of mine who did the show with me 2 months ago, Naomi Sunshine. I had teased her about writing me a theme song, and she came through with one, and that's the song that you will be hearing and have already heard over the opening and the closing credits tonight. Naomi, I love you, and I love the song, and thank you. So to all of you out there, take care, and I'll see you next month.